These crimes were so horrific that the courts decided those responsible should never be released. One of these inmates murdered his own wife and 3 young children before fleeing the country. Another shot a police sergeant at point-blank range inside a police station. And another took a year off work to adopt a baby, only for that child to be dead just 4 months later. The offenders mentioned in this video all received the same sentence, a whole life order. It is the most severe punishment available under UK law, meaning unless their sentence is overturned on appeal, they will never be eligible for release. Government figures showed that at the latest official count in 2025, just 74 prisoners in England and Wales were serving a whole life order, making them among the most dangerous offenders in the prison system. These are just 10 of those prisoners who will never be set free, and there will be more videos to come in this series. We'll begin with one of the most recent people to receive a whole life order, Kyle Clifford. On the 9th of July 2024, Kyle carried out one of the most shocking family murders Britain had seen in years. His victims were 61-year-old Carol Hunt and her daughters, 25-year-old Louise Hunt and 28-year-old Hannah Hunt, the wife and daughters of BBC racing commentator John Hunt. Kyle arrived at the family's home in Bushey in Hertfordshire and tricked Carol into letting him inside by claiming he had a bag of Louise's belongings and a thank you card for Carol and John. But as soon as he was inside, he stabbed Carol to death. He then waited in the house for around an hour until Louise returned home. When she arrived, prosecutors said that he restrained her with duct tape, sexually assaulted her, and then fatally shot her in the chest with a crossbow. Just minutes later, Hannah also returned home. Kyle shot Hannah in the back with the crossbow. Despite suffering catastrophic injuries, Hannah managed to call 999 before collapsing. She later died at the scene. After the murders, Kyle fled and was eventually found by armed police in a cemetery in North London. As officers closed in, he then turned the crossbow on himself in an apparent attempt to take his own life. He survived, but the shot left him paralysed from the waist down. This attack came just 13 days after Louise ended their 18-month relationship. Prosecutors said that Kyle refused to accept the breakup and spent the next 11 days meticulously planning the murders. He researched John Hunt's movements to make sure that he would be away from the house before carrying out the attack. And during that time, Kyle bought a crossbow, a knife, rope, duct tape, petrol cans, and an air pistol, although the air pistol hadn't yet arrived before the attack took place. During the trial, Kyle pleaded guilty to 3 murders, but denied sexually assaulting Louise, claiming that DNA evidence recovered from her body was the result of consensual contact before the attack. But the jury rejected this claim and found him guilty. At sentencing, the judge described Kyle as a jealous man soaked in self-pity. Today, Carol, Louise and Hannah Hunt are remembered as a family who brought immense love, joy and light to everyone around them. Their loved ones say their enduring legacy will always be one of love, joy and colour. Next is Steve Sansom. On the evening of the 8th of March 2024, 38-year-old Sarah Mayhew agreed to meet Steve after he'd spent weeks trying to contact her through Facebook, WhatsApp, and repeated phone calls. The pair had been on a handful of dates months before, and at around 11 p.m, CCTV captured them meeting before walking back to Steve's flat, where his girlfriend Gemma Watts was already waiting. Exactly what happened inside the flat is unknown. However, after hearing the evidence, the judge concluded that Sarah had been lured there for depraved and violent sexual activity, during which she was murdered. Gemma later admitted to a member of staff at HMP Bronzefield that she had cut Sarah's throat with a knife. In the days that followed, Sarah's body was dismembered and her remains scattered across South London, On the 2nd of April 2024, almost a month later, a dog walker discovered human remains in Rawdon Field in New Addington. CCTV footage later showed Steve buying a hacksaw before he and Gemma were seen carrying heavy bags through the park. Then, on the 10th of May, Sarah's torso was found in a suitcase by a lake around a mile from the River Wandle. Although the couple cleaned Steve's flat after the murder, investigators still found blood inside. Sarah's exact cause of death could not be determined. Investigators also uncovered months of disturbing messages exchanged between Steve and his girlfriend Gemma, revealing the planning behind the killing. As early as September 2023, the pair were exchanging violent sexual fantasies. In one message, Steve wrote, "Everything looks like meat now, don't they? A plaything, something to cut, something to bleed." They also discussed compiling a list of potential victims, with Gemma suggesting Sarah Mayhew because she claimed she owed her money and had pissed her off. By November 2023, the pair were openly discussing luring Sarah to Steve's flat. When Steve asked if Gemma really wanted him to do it, she replied, "Only if it's a deal that she is not leaving in one piece." At the time of Sarah's murder, Steve Sansom was already on licence for a previous murder. In 1998, aged just 19, he stabbed 59-year-old taxi driver Terence Boyle to death during a robbery, before stealing his wallet containing just £25. He was released on licence in December 2019. Describing the pair as bloodthirsty, the judge sentenced Steve Sansom to a whole life order, while Gemma received a life sentence with a minimum term of 29 years. Sarah Mayhew was a devoted mother of two. Her family remembered her as a beautiful, kind and caring woman with an irreplaceable sparkle and a joyful smile. At the sentencing hearing, her parents spoke movingly of the enormous loss that they continue to live with every day. Next is Louis de Zoysa, who murdered Metropolitan Police Sergeant Matt Ratner while in police custody. At around 1:30 a.m. on the 25th of September 2020, Louis was stopped by police on London Road in Norbury, in South London. He had travelled alone on 2 buses from his home in Banstead and was carrying a brown bag. When officers spoke to him, Louis admitted that he was carrying cannabis, something that prosecutors later believed was intended to distract officers from a dangerous weapon. Hidden beneath his clothing was a loaded revolver in a holster under his left arm, along with ammunition concealed in one of his pockets. He had bought the gun around 3 months earlier. During a search, officers found the bullets, but Louis claimed that they were fake. He was arrested and taken by police van to Croydon Custody Centre. Despite being searched, officers failed to discover the revolver. While left alone inside the van for around 8 minutes, footage from the van captured Louis moving around as he managed to retrieve the hidden firearm from its holster. He was then escorted to a holding cell by 2 officers, where they were joined by Sergeant Matt Ratner. After being told that he would be searched again, Louis suddenly produced the revolver. He fired at Sergeant Ratner at point-blank range. The first bullet entered Matthew's chest, passing through his heart and other vital organs, before lodging in his spine. As the 2 accompanying officers threw themselves at Louis in an attempt to stop him, he fired again, striking Sergeant Ratner in the leg as he laid on the floor, and then a 3rd shot hit the cell wall. These 3 shots were all fired within just 3 seconds. During the struggle, a 4th shot was then discharged, striking Louis in the neck and leaving him with permanent brain damage following a stroke. Officers eventually managed to disarm him using a taser. Throughout this incident, he remained handcuffed. The entire attack was captured on custody CCTV. During sentencing, the judge said that the footage showed Louis had been treated with conspicuous compassion and kindness throughout. Louis had been diagnosed with autism as a child and experienced bullying at school, as well as difficulties at home. Despite those challenges, he achieved 3 A grades at A-level and at the time of the shooting was working as a coding analyst for HMRC. He also had no previous criminal convictions. At trial, he claimed he had experienced an autistic meltdown and argued he was guilty of manslaughter by diminished responsibility. The jury rejected that defence and convicted him of murder. Sergeant Matt Ratner was remembered by those who knew him as a gentle giant with a lion's heart and an infectious smile. His partner described him as her soulmate who died doing the job that he loved, while fellow officers honoured him with the words, "We'll take it from here, Sarge." Next is Shaine March. Just before 3 a.m. on the 22nd of July 2024, on Lynmouth Road in Walthamstow in London, found Alana Odysseus outside her home, suffering from multiple stab wounds. As she fought for her life, she repeatedly shouted, "Shaine stabbed me, he stabbed me," while pointing towards Shaine as he walked away. Alana had been stabbed at least 19 times and slashed at least 5 more. Despite managing to reach a neighbour's house, she died from her injuries. The couple had been together for around 4 months, and Alana had recently discovered that she was 7 to 8 weeks pregnant. She was also the devoted mum of a 2-year-old daughter, Victoria. Friends and family later told the court that Shaine had become controlling and abusive. They described physical assaults, emotional manipulation, and his attempts to isolate Alana from those closest to her. Just hours before her death, she sent a heartbreaking message to her sister, writing, "Can't help who you love, but he don't love any of us." On the night of the murder, neighbours heard the couple arguing. At one point, Alana was locked out of her home while Shaine remained inside with her sleeping 2-year-old daughter. Hours later, he launched the fatal attack. CCTV later captured Shaine walking away as he disposed of the knife, some clothing, and a rucksack before throwing 3 mobile phones down a nearby drain.
"Come on, I just killed a woman and I'm going back to jail."
He then walked into a nearby cafe and calmly told a member of staff that he had stabbed his wife, and I quote, "who has baby." He was arrested shortly before 5 a.m, later telling officers that the couple had argued about trainers before he saw red and stabbed her.
"I don't regret nothing." Yeah! That's me. You see my face? Yeah! Yeah! I'm a demon. Yeah!
Shaine had previously been convicted of murder after fatally stabbing 17-year-old Andre Drummond in 2000. Released on licence in 2013, he was later recalled to prison that same year after attacking another pregnant partner before being released again in 2018. Shaine initially admitted manslaughter on the grounds of diminished responsibility before later changing his plea to guilty of murder. Shaine was sentenced to life imprisonment with a minimum term of 42 years. However, the Court of Appeal ruled that the punishment was too lenient and replaced it with a whole life order. In memory of Alana Odysseus, her family and courts remember her as a bright, loud, loving woman with a heart of gold. Her sisters and parents fondly recalled her cheerful nature, her love for singing and dancing, and how she completely doted on her daughter as a brilliant, deeply protective mum. Next is Sharaz Ali, whose refusal to accept the end of a relationship would end in unimaginable tragedy. In August 2024, while on holiday with her sister, Antonia Garwith ended her relationship with Sharaz. He became convinced that she had left him for another man, despite there being no evidence that she had. She had simply decided she had had enough of the relationship. Unable to accept the breakup, Sharaz bombarded Antonia with messages. In one, he warned, "The people that are laughing at me will cry about their own life." The court later concluded that this was a reference to Antonia's mum and a chilling indication that he was already planning to wipe out her family. He also claimed he wanted to kill himself, sending Antonia a video of himself cutting his arms. However, the judge rejected that claim, finding it was simply another attempt to pressure her into getting back together with him. In the early hours of the 21st of August, Antonia returned to her sister Bryony's home on Westbury Road in Bradford after finishing work. She had been living here since the breakup. Just minutes later, Sharaz messaged asking if he could see her for just a minute. She replied no. Instead, Sharaz phoned 2 accomplices, stole a petrol can and bought 7 litres of petrol. While making his way to the house, he falsely messaged Antonia, claiming that he was already in bed. And soon after, he called her, accusing her of having another man inside. After waiting outside the house for around 20 minutes, one of his accomplices kicked in the front door before running away. Antonia came downstairs to investigate, where Sharaz poured petrol throughout the hallway and over her. He tried to ignite a lighter, but she managed to stop him. He pushed Antonia outside and saw this as an opportunity to check upstairs, believing a man was hiding there. But Bryony confronted him at the top of the stairs and prevented him from reaching the bedrooms where her 3 young children were asleep. Sharaz then set the house alight. The fire rapidly engulfed the property, killing 29-year-old Bryony Garwith, her 9-year-old daughter Dennisty, her 5-year-old son Oscar, and her 22-month-old daughter Aubrey. At the time, Antonia was outside, and Sharaz himself suffered burns to almost 60% of his body. Although he later claimed he intended to be caught in the fire, the judge rejected that claim. The court concluded that if Sharaz could not have a relationship with Antonia, then no one could. It was also found that he blamed Bryony for the breakup and knew that there was children inside the house when he started the fire. The judge also said that his alcohol and cocaine misuse had played a significant role in his behaviour and was convinced he had been controlling and physically abusive throughout the relationship. Sharaz Ali was convicted of 4 counts of murder and 1 count of attempted murder. Bryony Garwith and her 3 children were remembered by their family as joyful, deeply loved, and the centre of their world. Her partner described his complete heartbreak over losing his fiancé and beautiful children. Following the trial, her sister Antonia stated that no court sentence could ever heal their pain or bring back the 4 lives that they tragically lost that day. Next is Anthony Russell. Over the course of just 9 days in October 2020, Anthony carried out a series of murders across the West Midlands. His first victim was 32-year-old David Williams in Coventry. Anthony had become convinced that David had been involved with his girlfriend, a belief that investigators later established was entirely untrue. On the 21st of October, he strangled David with a lanyard before hiding his body beneath a bed. Days later, David's mum, 67-year-old Julie Williams, became concerned after she was unable to contact her son. She approached Anthony to ask if she knew where David was. At first, he pretended to help search for him, but on the 24th of October, he murdered Julie too. Investigators believed she may have realised what had happened to David and was killed to prevent her from going to the police. When the bodies were eventually discovered, the brutality of the attacks became clear. David had suffered 87 injuries, while Julie had sustained 113. After fleeing Coventry, Anthony met 31-year-old Nicole McGregor in Leamington Spa. Nicole was 5 months pregnant. Within just 3 hours of first meeting, Anthony persuaded her to walk with him to a nearby woodland, where he brutally attacked and strangled her. She had suffered blunt force injuries to her head and face, as well as a fatal bleed on the brain. Anthony then violently stole a car from a 78-year-old man, leaving him with life-threatening injuries, including a fractured skull and bleeding on the brain, before being arrested asleep inside the stolen vehicle in Burton-upon-Trent. The judge described Anthony's crimes as a week-long campaign of extreme violence. resulting in the sentence of a whole life order. Years later, while serving his sentence at HMP Frankland, Anthony Russell killed child murderer Ian Huntley by attacking him with a metal pole. Afterwards, he could be heard celebrating, shouting, "I've done it, I've done it, I've killed him, I've killed him." Julie and David Williams were remembered by their family as dear, loving individuals with hearts of gold, whose tragic loss caused such profound pain and torment that the prosecuting barrister was moved to tears while reading their impact statements. Nicole McGregor's family remembered her as a kind, caring person with a heart of gold, expressing that losing her and her unborn baby completely destroyed them, while her twin brother shared a touching online tribute telling her to fly high. Next is Marcus Osborne, whose campaign of coercive control and domestic abuse ended in the murders of his former partner and her friend. On the 10th of May 2023, 27-year-old Katie Higdon went to the police after Marcus threatened to slit her throat and the throats of her children, two of whom were his own. She had described how he'd become increasingly controlling throughout their relationship, dictating what she wore, where she went, and subjecting both her and her children to verbal and physical abuse. Just weeks later, Marcus had assaulted Katie, striking her around the head before pushing her down to the ground and kicking her in the ribs. This attack left her unable to get out of bed for several days. Eventually, she found the strength to leave with her children and stay with relatives. She changed her Facebook relationship status to single and ignored Marcus's repeated calls and messages, including one warning that if she was even messaging anyone else, he would fully end her. Katie later said that she believed he would kill her if she refused to return to him. On the 12th of May, the day Katie returned to her home in Huddersfield, Marcus was arrested on suspicion of domestic violence and coercive and controlling behaviour. But he was released on bail with conditions not to go near the property. But over the following days, he watched the house. On the evening of the 15th of May, Katie went to the cinema with a friend, 25-year-old Stephen Harnett, leaving her 4 children at home with a babysitter who we'll refer to as V. While they were out, Marcus broke into the house, held V captive at knife point, took her phone, and waited for Katie to return. In the early hours of the morning, as soon as Katie walked through the front door, Marcus attacked her, stabbing her 99 times. He then used Katie's phone to lure Stephen back to the house, where he fatally stabbed him 24 times and chopped off Stephen's penis before placing it on his tummy. Marcus arranged both of the bodies in the living room in a degrading manner. This was all while Katie's 4 children remained asleep upstairs. Marcus then returned upstairs to ensure that V had not escaped or alerted anyone. At daybreak, he raped her at knife point, threatening to slice her throat if she did not comply. V later recalled that Marcus was washing himself between the murders and laughing. Shortly before 9 a.m, Marcus asked a neighbour to come to the house, where he showed her the bodies. The neighbour later said it was almost as though he was proud of what he had done. Marcus Osborne, who had 12 previous convictions for 27 offences, later pleaded guilty to the murders of Katie Higdon and Steve Harnett, as well as rape and false imprisonment. Katie Higdon is remembered by her family as a shining, beautiful and deeply caring mum who devoted her life to her 4 children. Stephen Harnett was remembered as a loving dad and kind-hearted man with a heart of gold, whose loss devastated everyone who knew him. Next is Direece Roche. On the 1st of July 2024, 64-year-old Fintan McDwyer was found dead by his son at their home in Manchester. He had suffered more than 70 stab wounds. A camera inside the house, used to keep an eye on the family dog, had captured a masked intruder walking through the property. The audio revealed that the attack lasted around 90 seconds. CCTV from outside showed the man walking through Manchester wearing a balaclava and climbing over garden fences in an apparent attempt to avoid being seen. Police quickly identified the intruder as 30-year-old Direece Roche. Finton was his great-uncle, the brother of Direece's grandmother. Investigators found Direece's DNA along with Finton's blood on a torch recovered from a neighbouring garden. Direece claimed that he had only gone to the house to steal the family's bull terrier cross, Sammy, which had originally belonged to his grandmother. He told the court that he had only taken a torch with him and acted in self-defence after Finton confronted him with a knife. Then he also alleged that Finton had sexually abused him as a child, telling jurors, "I was in the fight of my life." Neither the murder weapon, Direece's trainers, nor the balaclava used during the attack were ever recovered. But the jury completely rejected Direece's account. The judge described him as deceptive, found that Finton was an entirely innocent man, and concluded that the killing had been planned and carried out without genuine remorse. At the time of the murder, Direece had been out of prison for just 9 months. In 2011, aged just 16, he had fatally stabbed 23-year-old Adam Steele following an argument in the street. He was sentenced to life imprisonment for murder and later released on licence before carrying out the murder of Finton. Finton's family remembered him as a true gentleman who always had a twinkle in his eye. Quiet and kind-hearted, he was known for his calm, reassuring presence and loved nothing more than walking his beloved dog, Sammy. Next is Rahan Arshad, who murdered his wife and 3 young children before fleeing the country. On the 28th of July 2006, taxi driver Rahan Arshad returned to his home in Cheadle Hulme in Greater Manchester. According to his account, he found his 3 children dead in the playroom before confronting his wife Uzma upstairs. He claimed that she taunted him by asking, "Are you satisfied now?" causing him to lose control and kill her. He later said that he couldn't remember the attack. The jury, however, completely rejected his account. Evidence instead showed that Rahan had discovered text messages revealing Uzma had been having an affair with a family friend for around 3 years. Witnesses described him as pathologically jealous, regularly accusing her of flirting with other men. As Uzma began embracing a more Western lifestyle by choosing her own clothes and makeup, Rahan became increasingly controlling, forcing her to dress more traditionally. Investigators concluded that Rahan viewed the murders as a so-called honour killing, believing that Uzma had brought the violence upon herself. Unable to accept the affair, Rahan bought a rounder's bat the day before the killing. He then used it to murder 32-year-old Uzma before taking his sleeping children, 11-year-old Adam, 8-year-old Abbas, and 6-year-old Henna, from their beds one by one and killing them in the playroom. Afterwards, Rahan fled to Thailand on a pre-booked flight, having already told neighbours that the family were going on holiday together. It wasn't until almost a month later that the bodies were discovered inside the family home. The scene was so distressing that officers involved said it was one that they would never forget. Following his arrest, Rahan admitted the murders, saying, "I confess to the murder. I don't regret killing that fucking bitch, but my kids, killing my kids." He showed almost no emotion as the jury returned their verdict. The judge told him, "Life imprisonment in your case means life." Uzma, Adam, Abbas and Henna are remembered by their loved ones as a devoted mother and 3 beautiful children whose loss left an unhealable grief. Nearly 2 decades on, their murders continue to be remembered by charities campaigning against honour-based abuse, ensuring that their story is never forgotten. The final inmate in this video took a year off work to adopt a baby. But just 4 months after Preston Elijah Davey was placed in his care, Preston was dead. This is the case of Jamie Varley. Jamie Varley, a former teacher from Blackpool, had been in a relationship with John McGowan Fazakali since 2018. The couple were eventually approved to adopt a young boy named Preston Davey. Preston was born on the 16th of June 2022 and entered emergency foster care just 5 days later. Despite a difficult start to life, foster carers described him as a happy little boy that could light up any room that he entered. He was placed in Jamie and John's care overnight for the first time on the 31st of March 2023, when he was just 9 months old. But within weeks, Jamie was already telling friends that he was struggling to cope. In one message, he described Preston as annoying. In another, he wrote that he and John were questioning every decision they had made. On one occasion, he even sent a video of Preston to his mum, alongside the chilling message, "This was before he was murdered and put to bed." During the 4 months that Preston lived with the couple, he was taken to hospital 3 times, with injuries including a seizure, bruising, and a fractured elbow. Each time, Jamie claimed that the injuries had been accidental. Then, on the 27th of July 2023, Jamie and John arrived at an urgent care centre carrying Preston. The toddler was unconscious and in cardiac arrest. Jamie claimed that he had left Preston unattended in the bath for only a couple of minutes while he was getting changed and returned to find him submerged in the water. Investigators quickly uncovered serious inconsistencies. Preston arrived at hospital completely dry, while detectives recovered a 35-second video recorded earlier that day showing him in obvious distress and struggling to breathe. Rather than immediately seeking medical help though, Jamie filmed the incident before waiting more than 2 hours for John to return home from work before taking Preston for treatment. As detectives examined the evidence, an even more disturbing picture emerged. Investigators discovered that only weeks after Preston was placed in their care, Jamie had begun creating indecent images and videos of him, some of which were shared with John through Snapchat. A post-mortem examination found Preston had suffered more than 40 separate injuries, including internal injuries to his mouth, throat, bladder, and bowels. The judge concluded Jamie had treated Preston as his plaything, while detectives later described him as pure evil. John McGowan Fazakali was also convicted for his role in the abuse and murder. At the time of recording this video, Preston would have recently celebrated his 4th birthday. Instead, he is remembered as the little boy who, despite the difficult start to life, brought joy to everyone who cared for him.